Most men today will never know what it felt like to be the kind of father who could not be broken. These are the 25 Christian rules that built them. Rule 1 demanded absolute self-command. A Christian father kept his fear hidden from his children, maintaining a steady face in every crisis. When financial pressures mounted, when medical reports came back grim, or when Cold War anxieties filled the evening news, his face remained a fortress of calm. Children read a father's fear as immediate danger. His unwavering composure was the bedrock that made the home feel secure. Today's culture of emotional exposure has blurred the line between honesty and weakness, leaving families to navigate difficulties without an anchor. Rule 2 dictated that a man finished what he started, regardless of the personal cost. Whether it was a grueling second shift at the factory, a promise made to a neighbor, or the silent burden of a failing business, he stayed with the task until it was fully done. Quitting was a moral failure, an unacceptable escape that taught children to run when life became difficult. Modern comfort culture has made walking away feel normal, but these men understood that completing a hard task was the true measure of a man's word. Rule 3 governed authority with a quiet, powerful restraint. A father disciplined with firmness, never with rage. When correction was necessary, it was deliberate, measured, and calm. Uncontrolled anger destroyed trust and turned discipline into a chaotic display of power. These fathers ruled their households with the quiet weight of absolute standards rather than the loud roar of abuse. It was correction designed to build a child's conscience and respect for authority, establishing a clear boundary that today's permissive world often mistakes for cruelty. Rule 4 demanded absolute defense of the household's honor. A father never allowed another man to disrespect his family. Any slight against his wife or children was met with immediate, direct confrontation. Tolerating disrespect taught sons to be passive, a surrender that paved the way for the soft, compliant masculinity that took root in the late 1960s. A Christian father stood as a physical shield, establishing a boundary no outsider dared cross. Rule 5 bound his tongue to absolute truth. A father kept his word, even when it cost him dearly. A promise remained binding, even when it became punishingly inconvenient. In this era, commitments were not subject to situational ethics or personal comfort. If a man broke his word, he broke his children's belief in truth itself. Today's culture of negotiable vows has replaced this iron standard, leaving families to navigate a world where nothing is guaranteed. These men knew that a man who could not be trusted to keep his word could not be trusted to lead. Rule 6 demanded silent endurance. A Christian father never complained about hard work. He carried the physical and financial load of his household without turning the family table into a complaint board. In an era before modern grievance culture rewarded men for publicizing their hardships, these fathers believed that expressing self-pity was a form of weakness. Children did not learn resilience from spoken lectures. They copied the quiet, unbreakable way their father handled strain. This silent labor shaped the physical rhythm of the household. Rule 7 dictated that a father was always the last to eat and the first to rise. He served his family first and took his own place last. Long before the sun broke, he was already awake, preparing for the shift ahead. At dinner, his plate was filled only after his wife and children were fed. It was a visible sermon of sacrifice, taught through raw actions rather than easy words. Today, personal comfort has replaced selflessness as the default standard, but these men prioritize duty over ease. Under Rule 8, a father never asked his wife to work outside the home to relieve his own burdens. He carried the financial strain entirely on his own shoulders, believing that asking his wife to carry the load so he could rest was a direct abandonment of his post. While modern economic shifts have normalized dual-income households, the 1950s father viewed sole provision as an absolute non-negotiable duty. Shifting that weight away meant surrendering his office as the family's ultimate guardian. Rule 9 demanded a plain confession without excuse. When a father made a mistake, he admitted it directly, stating simply and clearly that he was wrong. Shifting blame or rationalizing failure taught children that personal accountability was optional. While modern pride treats the admission of mistakes as a weakness, the 1950s father understood that true authority required absolute honesty. An illusion of perfection was a lie. By taking immediate ownership of his faults, he set an uncompromising standard of integrity. Rule 10 took this discipline and made it highly visible. A father never let his children see him quit. When financial ruin loomed, when physical exhaustion took hold, or when life became unbearable, he refused to show surrender. He kept moving forward. Children who never witnessed their father abandon his post grew up believing that finishing was the only path. Modern therapy culture has reframed quitting as self-preservation, giving men an easy exit when the pressure mounts. But these fathers rejected the escape hatch. They stood firm in the face of absolute hardship, teaching their children that endurance was a duty and that surrender was entirely out of the question. Under Rule 11, a Christian father taught his sons the reality of hard labor long before they became teenagers. By age 10, a boy was assigned real duties with real consequences, transforming the domestic sphere into a strict training ground for manhood. These fathers knew that shielding a child from work created adults completely unprepared for life's demands. Extended childhoods only delayed the strength required to survive. This training required a specific model of leadership. Rule 12 dictated that a father earned respect through his daily actions, rather than demanding it through volume or fear. Constant shouting and heavy-handed control were marks of insecure masculinity, producing outward obedience but zero inner loyalty. True authority was quiet, built on a foundation of absolute consistency that a son could respect. The ultimate purpose of this discipline was to prepare the family for the public eye. Under Rule 13, a father protected the family reputation as his most valuable possession. In the communities of the 1950s, a damaged name in church, town, or business instantly closed doors for everyone in the household. These men rejected the modern pursuit of personal image, understanding that individual desires must never destroy family honor. Rule 14 commanded absolute domestic containment. A father never spoke about his problems in public. If financial strain, marital tension, or personal failures threatened the household, those battles were fought and resolved strictly within the four walls of the home. Airing private struggles to neighbors or co-workers was not healthy expression. It was a betrayal that shattered his family's security and invited outside judgment. He kept his family's struggles locked away from public view. In an era before social media turned personal weakness into public entertainment, a father stood as a silent vault, protecting his home from the gaze of the world. Rule 15 established that a father was defined by his character, not his income. While the post-war economic boom made material wealth an easy way to judge a man, Christian fatherhood rejected this superficial scale. A massive paycheck could never cover a bankrupt spirit. These fathers knew that raising children to worship money rather than integrity produced hollow men. They lived with the understanding that a modest home built on honesty, fidelity, and faith was infinitely more valuable than a mansion built on compromise. True masculine wealth was measured by who a man was when the lights went out, not by the balance of his bank account. Rule 16 formed the unseen foundation of this entire system. Long before the house stirred, before the first pot of coffee brewed or the sun cleared the horizon, a father met his creator in quiet solitude. He did not seek an audience. He understood that leading a household in public without first kneeling in private was merely an act, a hollow performance. This silent discipline focused his mind and steeled his resolve for the daily battle of provision. But as mornings grew busier and late-night habits shifted, this early sanctuary was slowly lost, replaced by the rush of modern schedules. When he did step out the door, he operated under a strict economic defense. Rule 17 dictated that a father never allowed debt to threaten his home. He viewed borrowed money as an immediate danger rather than an opportunity. To these men, debt was a form of voluntary surrender, handing control of their family's future to outsiders. While the post-war expansion of consumer credit made borrowing ordinary and convenient, the Christian father rejected the trap. He chose the slow, disciplined path of saving over the false ease of installment plans. This financial control supported his role as the final decision maker. Under Rule 18, a father accepted absolute responsibility for every outcome in the home. If a choice failed, if money ran tight, or if the household drifted, he refused to blame his wife, his children, or his circumstances. Blame was a coward's escape, a signal that leadership had been abandoned. In an era before modern therapy culture made excuses respectable, these men stood as the ultimate shield for their families. They understood that authority and accountability were inseparable. Rule 19 drew an unyielding line around the minds of his children. A father never allowed another man to raise them. He monitored every teacher, coach, and neighbor who entered their lives, refusing to outsource his primary duty. To delegate this task was to surrender his post. As corporate careers expanded, offering long hours and travel schedules, many men accepted the trade-off, letting outside influences shape their children's character. But the Christian father stood as an active gatekeeper, knowing that if he did not mold his children's minds, the world gladly would. This vigilance materialized at exactly 6 o'clock every evening. Rule 20 demanded that a father was present at the family dinner table every single night. The dinner table was not a casual option. It was a non-negotiable daily muster. To be absent from the table was to be absent from his children's formation. When suburban expansion brought longer commutes and corporate careers demanded late-night office hours, many men surrendered this daily ritual, choosing late meetings over family meals. But the Christian father rejected the erosion of his household, knowing that leadership required physical presence, night after night. True authority did not hide behind an illusion of infallibility. Rule 21 demanded that a father admit when he was wrong, speaking plainly to his children when he had been wrong. He rejected the fear that an apology would undermine authority, knowing that refusing to admit fault taught pride over truth. This self-command ruled his emotions. Under Rule 22, a father never let anger guide a single decision, refusing to punish, spend, or confront in the heat of the moment. He knew that angry reactions bred regret, a standard of restraint that stands against modern emotional reactivity. Finally, Rule 23 required complete consistency. He was the same man at home as he was at church. He did not live as two different men, knowing that children who saw hypocrisy lost faith in everything he represented. These 25 rules did not produce perfect fathers. They produced men who refused to be broken, standing firm no matter what came. Which of these rules did your father live by? Let us know in the comments. Rule 24 demanded that a father prepare his sons to live without him. Fatherhood was not an endless cycle of protection. It was a mission of release. If a grown son remained dependent on his father's strength, that father had failed in his basic duty. These men did not hover, shield, or indulge their offspring. They gave their boys hard choices and heavy responsibilities early, forging men who could stand on their own feet in a harsh, demanding world. Today's culture of overprotection has traded preparation for temporary safety, leaving a generation of dependent boys ill-equipped for the storm of adulthood. This raw training built toward the final standard. Under Rule 25, a father died knowing he had left behind something worth inheriting. This was not a matter of bank accounts or real estate, but of character, faith, and an unblemished family name. A life that left no spiritual inheritance meant his decades on earth were wasted, hollow, and spent in vain. While modern fatherhood chases personal fulfillment, self-expression, and constant comfort, the Christian father of the 1950s lived and died entirely for legacy. These 25 rules did not produce perfect fathers. They produced men who refused to be broken, standing firm no matter what came. Which of these rules did your father live by? Let us know in the comments. These rules never created flawless men. They forged fathers who refused to break under weight. Today, as we exchange those heavy burdens for easy comforts, we must ask what our families are losing. True strength isn't history, it is a standard waiting to be reclaimed. Which of these rules did your father live by? Let us know in the comments.